and welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to another day of the World Team League 2023 Winter Edition, Round 2, day number 2. I'm of course Joe's Live VIP, and with me I'm joined by my lovely plushies and my lovely people in the chat as well, and these insanely good players. Last night we did of course host day 1, and we got to see players or teams like Team Basilisk going up against the Starving Camels. We saw the Platinum Heroes as well as some other big teams, and yeah, those are some really amazing games, to be honest. Some really amazing games. So it was Team Liquid versus the Starving Camels and Basilisk versus the Platinum Heroes, and we saw some amazing upsets. Like, even though on paper a lot of these matches should have been a lot more one-sided, it was closer than we thought it would be. It was very close a series in the end last night. Some amazing games were had, and I'm sure today isn't going to disappoint either, as up first we have Matcherino Esports versus the KWANGDONG FREECS. Here we go. We have Astrea versus Sue, Nightmare versus Stats, and Future versus Keen. And of course, we have our starting players, Sue and Astrea. And oh my god, we are just diving right on in. As in the bottom right hand corner for Matcherino Esports, it is Astrea. Oh, let's go. And in the top left, we have his opponents for the KWANGDONG FREECS, Sue. Here we go. Okay, so we are just not holding back, just diving straight into this first best of 2. As a reminder, overall, this Team League match is a best of 7, first to 4 wins. Within this best of 7, we have 3 best of 2s, not best of 3s, bear that in mind. It is a unique format, but a format that we have grown accustomed to, we have grown very fond of here in WTL. The first map is predetermined, and the second map is chosen by the loser of game 1. So it is loser's pick, and there are no vetoes, no holds bar. So that does add a little bit of extra spice to this, especially considering that we have an extended map pool nowadays. We have 9 maps instead of 7, and some of these maps, they have very big advantages. So that does kind of add a twist to things, in the end. Meanwhile, I just did realize, because we dove straight into it, and I thought we would have a little bit more time. Oh, do we? Yeah, okay. It's gonna be very short. Very short, but very sweet. We will have predictions very briefly going on, so best of luck as we are still here in the early game of game number 1. So place your bets. You have 1 minute. What? That 1 minute upon hearing this message to place your bets in the chat for how you think this series is going to go. A 2-0 in either direction or a 1-1 all around. Best of luck. As predictions are quickly going through. Meanwhile, shout out to the sponsors as well: Doyu, Taido, and Autofool. Of course, without these lovely sponsors, this event would not be happening. Not just this event, but also the WTL Kung Fu Cup as well. So much love to especially Taido. They've been around for a long time supporting this tournament. Of course, as we get into this standard opener, we do see a hatch gas pool here from Sue. Likewise, oh, actually Astrea going for a double gate opener instead. Interesting choice. With this double gate opener, he could of course be a little bit more assertive, but it looks like he just threw down that second gateway just to fully wall off, and he is still going for a Stargate opener. Isn't being overly aggressive. He isn't making an abundance of units early on. So relatively standard here from Astrea. And of course, as we get into this, I will talk a little bit about Astrea as well. He is a very aggressive player, a very unique player as well. There are times where he kind of comes up with his own builds, or he just comes up with his own play style, and he can be a difficult player to read. We saw that last week as well. It didn't really come to fruition, and Astrea did struggle to find a lot of success with it. But again, just a very, very unique player, and that's also why I love casting him. It's also why I champion players like Astrea, who kind of break the mold and do their own thing. They walk their own path, and they find success doing so as well. Our first 2 adepts have hit the field. We have 2 more adepts behind this, the Oracle as well. So Astrea is looking to be hyper aggressive with his adept and Oracle harass. He's looking for some economic damage. He's looking to try to pull apart Sue. Sue, of course, one of the returning players. That is basically KWANGDONG FREECS in a nutshell. A lot of players on KWANGDONG FREECS are ex-military. They have done their military service. They have returned to the game. They are part-time, A lot of these players have concluded their military service quite some time ago, but they don't dedicate to StarCraft as much as, say, Hero or Classic or Dark or Beyond, for example. But regardless, they have qualified for WTL, and that means that we're going to be seeing more of them, which I appreciate. You know, we're going to see more Su, more Armani, Keen, Alive, for example. These players that, again, aren't very active anymore, but now they have reason to be active. As we are up to 6 adepts, we're going to be threading a shade towards these bases, but the Lings are in position and we will not commit. Su taking this very seriously, amassing a massive amount of Lings. Su actually cut workers early on to make this happen, so Su's worker count is less than ideal, but there we go. Finally, we have 12 drones on the way. Su catching back up in the worker count and did at least minimize losses here against those adepts. Behind this 5-minute Roach Warren, a standard timing for the Roach Warren here for Su, so nothing too crazy. With that, you can get into Roach production. Once we get into the mid-game, we can start working on upgrades as well. Lair is on the way. Speaking of, I believe we haven't seen an Eva Chamber yet. There we go. First Eva Chamber is now thrown down. It is quite late. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Su goes for range instead of melee. +1 melee builds have been falling off a little bit just because there isn't as much of a power spike. Those wondering, in the previous patch, a big power spike was when +2 melee hits, because +2 melee means Bailings one-shot workers. That is no longer the case in the new patch. So because of that, these +1 range, or these range-focused upgrades have been prioritized here by a lot of Zerg players. And there it is, range is on the way. So it's going to be a more Roach-heavy composition, less so Lingbane out of Su. This also can lead into a more clean transition into Hydras and Lurkers, as we are already working on those range upgrades. Meanwhile, Astrea is taking a more defensive approach. He's taking up very heavily. We have Twilight Council, Forge, Robo, and Robotics Bay all on the way for Astrea. This all tells us that Astrea plans on being very defensive until he can get into his Colossus production. Extended Thermal Lance is on the way. Everything is being scouted, by the way, so Su now knows that he has the freedom to be very greedy, and there it is, immediately Infestation Pit. Infestation Pit gets thrown down here for Su. This is going to be for Hive Tech, for Vipers more importantly. Vipers is going to be very important here to try to defend against the Colossus heavy composition of Astrea. So a good scout out of Su. The downside is that Su had been cutting workers earlier, and he's even still making roaches, which is a little bit concerning. I do think that Su has to take advantage of Astrea as much as he can and just drone as heavily as possible up to almost 80, so he can just get into a comfortable position. But yeah, Su, he's just intermittently just focusing on roach production, building up his army, and then squeezing out a couple of drones wherever he can. And here's the rest of our tech. There's the Hive for Su, and there is the Hydrogen as well. So Su should be working towards Hydra Lurker Viper. That should be the end goal. But is going to be losing some workers here, despite Astrea mainly defending back at home. Even with just 2 adepts and a War Prism, he is wreaking some havoc, and he is going to get a couple more workers here at the third, getting 3 in total. Not too bad. The Prism is still alive, and he is keeping Su busy. So very nice damage done so far here by Astrea. Again, Su still not quite at the 80 worker count, but there we go. He's finally getting there. 80 workers now kicking in for Su. Now we do have that Lurker Den in production, is lined up with the Hive, so we can get into those Lurker upgrades straight away. And I like that Su's being active. I didn't like that Su invested so much into his army so early on, but now he's actually making use of it. Force fields are thrown down, but we should be forcing a cancel on this 4th base. Containing Astrea here to 3 bases. Very nicely done here by Su. Again, making use of this army that he has amassed. Su cannot kill Astrea, he cannot break him, but he can deny bases. So very well done. From here, +2 ranges on the way. Again, Hydra production has commenced. We have Astrea across the map looking to reciprocate that damage, looking to get a couple of worker kills if possible. Adepts do dip in, but we are in position. The Lings and the Hydras shut down the Adepts. At least we scout the Hydras. At least Astrea is aware of what's going on. Looks like he has scouted the Lurker Den and the Hive, and here we go. So Astrea knows he's on a timer. He knows that he cannot just sit back and wait until the Lurkers are done, especially because Astrea has his 4 Colossus. This is the timing that he's been looking for. 4 Colossus, that is his moment, as he's clearing up a lot of this creep, but he's also pushing deep onto creep. Is Su ready for this? He's going for a lane counterattack. Lurkers are in production. They just now finish. They finish up, but Astrea, he ignores the Lurkers. He's pushing towards the natural base. Good force fields as well. No Ravagers. 1, 2 Colossi get yoinked. Good start here for Su. He does cut the Colossus count in half. And Astrea just barely cannot push in towards that natural. He is being forced back. There's just too much Zerg here. As I say that, the Roach army is falling. But we cannot push into the Lurkers. Just too many. Instead, Astrea, he's going to rotate around. So Astrea has been trading efficiently, and he finds another Lurker. Good pick off here. He hasn't done any economic damage, unfortunately, but he's rotating around. He's cleaning up a lot of this creep. As time goes on, though, Su is amassing a larger army, and I worry for Astrea. Without any more sentries, I feel like he should eventually back up here. As reinforcements for Su are on the way, and we don't have a way to reinforce this army. I appreciate that, yeah, Astrea, he's kind of skirting the edges of the map. He snipes a Viper. Oh my god. Su down to only a single Viper, has to replace it, and yeah, Astrea is now backing off. Is off of creep. Su trying to catch that army. Trying to find a surround. He looks like he does come across a couple of these Stalkers. Time comes across the Colossus as well, but an awkward engagement out of Su is going to bleed out a couple too many units. And as Astrea is backing off, he's getting into disruptor production. Again, 2 disruptors at a time. Astrea gets his 4th base up and running. Now again, Astrea, he wasn't able to really cripple the economy of Su. He wasn't able to touch the economy. Do yoink another Colossus. Another Colossus does go down. But Astrea was able to trade against the army. Nova will not connect. Good target firing out of Su. Barely takes down the disruptor, but so many Hydras go down. And again, Astrea, he may not be touching the economy of his opponent, but he's just trading so well against the army, killing so many Roaches, Hydras, Lurkers. He still has that 1 Colossus remaining, and Su is struggling. He has a bank, but if you notice, no gas bank. Oh, he was late to take his gases. He has almost 2k minerals and 0 gas. Su can only make Lings, and Lings in this position are not... I was going to say they're not good enough, but there's only 1 Colossus. Lings actually wouldn't fare too badly. I mean, they are +0 Lings. To be fair, I have to take that into consideration, the fact that there aren't any melee upgrades as they otherwise usually would be. Zealot hits this center base. Meanwhile, the main armies are clashing. Oof. The Roach Hydra gets caught out. A big loss there for Su. He keeps his Lurkers alive, but he's losing everything else. Yeah, and Astrea, he's snowballing out of control. He has detection Novas. They will connect. Those Lurkers barely do survive. We do have plenty of Vipers available to deal with this, so Astrea, he has to respect that, definitely. And he's already transitioning. We have a Fleet Beacon, we have a second Stargate, +1 air attack is on the way. Astrea is getting ready for Sky Toss, but honestly, he doesn't need to. I'll be like, both armies are kind of trading blow for blow, and Astrea has been gaining ground. Of course, he's just thinking further ahead, making sure he has, or he secures this game with these carriers now on the way. There is no Spire at Su. He is not ready for Sky Toss whatsoever. I mean, he's got Hydra Lurker. I mean, it's okay. Nice yoinks here on those disruptors. Almost every disruptor does get caught. Only 2 disruptors are left. Su, he's holding on. So Hydra Viper can deal with a low amount of carriers, but once we hit critical mass, that's when we need Corruptors. We need other spellcasters to get involved as well. As Su is holding onto this base just barely at the same time. Ooh, warping into the main. Gets a couple of workers, trades with the Hydras. A good backstab here from Astrea. He's able to just get some breathing room, snipes a Lurker in the process. Getting ready for another Zealot run by here on the left-hand side. He's trying to drag the army and keep the attention of Su here towards the right, while he gets ready for that run by on the left. Oh my god. Big Nova goes off the High Templar, caught out. Every High Templar falls. Su not trading too poorly here. He does get the last Colossus. Little does Su know that as we have a bit of a misrally, but as he's getting rid of these Colossi, as he's getting rid of these Disruptors, we're just building up more carriers. More and more carriers are on the way. Oh, the spies! Oh my god. Astrea, he takes some spies to the face. in the end does take down those lurkers. The hatchery does fall. Su taking quite a blow to his economy. He's down to 4 bases, less bases than the Protoss. And again, we're just building up carriers back at home. 4 carriers now out, soon to be 6. We are keeping up our disruptor production as well, to just continue having that splash damage, that supportive units available for the Sky Toss. And the carriers are now revealing themselves. And Su doesn't have the economy here to sustain a tech transition. He doesn't have the bank for it. He's been losing a bit too much. Another lurker goes down. Solid run by Cashes and Queens, catching some workers. So at this point, he's quite desperate with his army. He's looking to trade. He needs to. He is max, to be fair. He does force his way up the ramp, and other storms! One a good storm, but the other high tempo get caught. Novas are going to be going up as well. The carrier's just going ham on this army. There are not enough Hydras in position. The Yoinks come in, but the carriers, they can just turn around and fight. They don't. As I say that, 1, 2, 3 carriers go down. Astrea losing even another carrier, being a little bit wasteful with his army control. He will win this fight, but that was closer than it needed to be. GG gets called regardless, and Astrea will take game number 1. Whew. Gee, popping off in the in the camps. GG, well played. Again, Astrea doing a great job at, well, I mean, kind of winding it all back here. I do feel like Su, he did end up scouting the kind of game that Astrea was going for. I do think that it was a bit of a late scout. As a result, if you remember, leading up to Hive Tech, I don't think Su was as greedy as he could have been. I think he could have cut more corners and gotten up to 80 workers a little bit faster and teched up into Hive a little bit faster. I think his teching was fine. I think his droning is what I was really concerned about. Eventually, he made use of the army that he had amassed, and he was denying bases, but his economy wasn't quite what it needed to be. He did end up holding against the first push, the 4 Colossus timing, but it was a tight hold, if you remember. Like, Astrea, he pushed deep onto creep, he pushed in between and wedged himself in between the natural and the third base. And even though he didn't kill Su, he traded damn well. So very nicely done there by Astrea. As we get into this, speaking of, for Matcherino Esports, we have Astrea in the top right, and in the top left, we have, for the KWANGDONG Freecs, Su. So getting into game number 2. As a reminder, this is Su's map of choice. It was his map pick, and did decide to dive into Equilibrium. Interesting. Oh my, interesting choice. Okay, all right, Astrea. Okay. You got my attention, Astrea. You got my attention. Nexus first. Nexus first. Goal base. Greediest opener you can go for as a Protoss player. Hands down, the greediest opener. The only way you could top this if like Nexus, then Gateway, but that's just suicide. Oh my god. So I mentioned earlier at the start of game 1 how Astrea, he is one that is willing to explore and be adventurous and go for these like kind of weird and quirky builds, and game 1 was very standard. As I was saying, that game 1 was very standard. We see plenty of Protoss players just be very tech heavy, defensive. They get up to 4 bases, they go double Robo Colossus production and just work on this big push. There was nothing too fancy about what Astrea did. His execution was good, but the build itself was relatively standard. Here, this is wild. Now, what I'm most excited about, as he goes Nexus first and takes the gold, is that we have seen over the past 2 weeks, a lot of players try to take the gold base here, try to rush into this gold as a natural or even a third base. And we haven't seen it successfully held. We haven't seen a player successfully take advantage of this base. We have seen it taken as like a 4th or a 5th base, like without too much issue, like later on down the line when you have an army and you have a control of the map, like we have seen that and that's fine. But to take this gold this early on, I am curious and I'm excited to see if Astrea can get away with it or if Su punishes him. As for now, Su is just poking the front wall. He hasn't checked. Su has not checked that goal base, not yet at least. As Astrea is going for a Stargate opener. I'm a little bit surprised. I assumed that it would be a Twilight Council opener into a charge all-in to take advantage of all these minerals, but no, it's going to be a Stargate opener instead. As we can see from the Observer, Su has seen the lack of expansion, and it's double Stargate. A double Stargate Void Ray, or are we going Mass Oracle? What's the plan here? Phoenixes? All of the above. They're all viable options here. I'm curious. First Oracle is on the way. That's fine. That's to make sure everything looks normal and to make sure everything is on the up and up. Get some scouting information, harass the mineral line. But behind this, where are we going? And again, Su, he hasn't noticed what he's seen. And I don't blame him. It's just a really, like, you just expect there to be a base. You expect there to be a natural, you know? It's something you take for granted as a player, and sometimes you just don't think about it. Oh, it's double Stargate Void Ray. And he's checking, he's confirming, he did a double take. He's like, wait a minute, wait, what's going on? Oh no. The wheels are turning. Su is piecing this together, but by this point it is too late. At this point, the Oracle takes a lot of hits. See a Revelation. Su isn't really set up to punish a gold, and I'm sure now he's thinking about the gold base now that the Nexus has been thrown down, but the Void Rays are on the way, and Su's been droning. There is no early tech, there's no Roach Warren, there's no Baneling Nest, no additional gases, no lair. And as we can see here, Astrea far ahead in the economy. This gold base and the rich Vespene gas guys are really kicking in. That's something that I'd forgotten. Sorry, the reason why I assumed it would be like a charge all-in or something, I'd forgotten that that base has a rich Vespene gas geyser as well. That's crazy. And that means we can afford a double Stargate Void Ray. We have the gas for it. We have plenty of gas for it. So not all about the minerals, but it's also about the gas. Meanwhile, the Adepts do not commit to the shade. One of the Void Rays has been spotted. We're going straight for a Fleet Beacon, straight for Sky Toss. This is a good map for Sky Toss as well. Equilibrium, you do end up in split map scenarios quite often. That's why I was surprised to see Su go for this map as well. As the Void Rays, they take down two Overlords. Not quite supply blocking Su, but now with the second Void Ray, now with the Revelation, Su should be aware of the Sky Toss that's coming out. As Astrea has not lost a single unit, not yet. And Su has to take a defensive position at this point. Like, how many Void Rays are hitting the field? You know, 6 Void Rays? Su, he's working on Queens. Overlord speed is on the way. Roach speed as well. Interesting. The core base has been confirmed. With Overlord speed, this could be a Queen all-in, like a Queen Roach all-in coming in from Su. But I think it's too late. We'll see if he does commit to it. Yeah, here we go. Roaches are on the way, Queens as well. So with Overlord speed, that means we should be seeing Dropper Lords, and that's how we send the Queens across the map. But we have so many Void Rays already, and Carriers are on the way. The Queens, no, we can't afford to lose them. One of them does barely escape. But another goes down. We are wasting energy. Another Queen falls, and another. The Roaches are waddling across the map, but they get caught out by the Voids. Everything going from bad to worse here for Su. Now he's droning. And these Queens that were meant to be attacking across the map, they are struggling to defend back at home. They take down one Void Ray. Ling run by Roaches as well, rushing across the map. These Queens that were meant to be a part of that assault, by the way, but it's just not happening. Astrea, he dove on the Queens ahead of time. Now the Roaches, they can kill some workers, definitely. They're gonna get a couple of probe kills. Focusing on that shield battery, the Void Rays are not turning back around. We're committing. Astrea just so aggressive here. We will lose another Void Ray. It's bleeding out a little bit. On top of that, 10 workers go down. Oh, Astrea losing quite a lot of this mineral line. And this is what I was curious about. Like, again, you don't have to commit too much here to punish this base. 11 probes go down. Does Astrea have enough? He has been camping the queens, but he hasn't really done much about the economy of Su. Oh, and Astrea may lose another Void Ray. Oof. Yeah, another Void Ray did end up going down. So again, Astrea, his Void Ray count has been crippled. The Spire is about to finish, and Su has a lot of resources. Look at that bank. Su, he is ready to go into Corruptors. And typically we would have Void Rays to protect the carriers against the Corruptors, but that is not the case, not anymore. I am concerned that maybe Astrea was just a little bit too adventurous with his Void Ray movement, but we'll see if he can pull it off. Here we go, he's pushing on forward. Where are those Corruptors? Do we have the larva? Oh no. Because of the dead queens, we don't have the larva. Ah, GG. Su. He had 2k minerals, 1k gas, but he couldn't spend his money. Ah, GG, well played with the carrier push. Astrea takes it, and he takes the 2-0. GG. I was like, yo, as soon as we finish up the Spire, we can just make like, what, 12, 13, 14, 15 Corruptors, and we can just go to town. I was checking as well. I was like, are we supply blocked? No, we're not supply blocked. We have the free supply for it. The larva was something that I wasn't thinking of, and yeah, there towards the end, Su, he was trying to make units, but he couldn't. He didn't have the larva for it on those 3 bases. Was losing too many queens, did not have larva banked up, and GG. GG, well played. Congratulations to Astrea as he takes it in the end. A strong start for Matcherino Esports, especially considering I've spoken about this before, but I'm of the opinion that Su is the ace player of the KWANGDONG Freeks. I do think he's the strongest player on their current lineup. I said this before, but it's like Su and TY. I think they're the top 2 on the KWANGDONG Freeks at the moment, and they go back and forth. But TY isn't here tonight, and with Su taking a loss to Astrea, that doesn't bode well for the rest of his team. The KWANGDONG Freeks, they are a team of veterans, and they are, in more ways than one actually, they are a team of veterans. And there's a lot of star power on the KWANGDONG Freaks with TY and Stats and Su and Alive and Keen and Armani. But the reality is that they aren't as in form as they once were back in their prime. They aren't as active as they once were, and players like Stats and Keen, they're still working their way back up the ladder. They're still building up their skills and building up their form. Here for the KWANGDONG Freaks, for Stats and Keen to have mirror matchups available. This is ideal for them. And here we go. We are going to be getting ready for that as well. The lobby is getting set up, and Nightmare versus Stats, that's going to be an interesting one. Nightmare, of course, he for a long time was on Team NV and Team Abydos. Abydos did disband after the previous season of WTL, and shout out to Matcherino, because Matcherino did pick Nightmare up, and I do think that he is a valuable pickup. I do think that Nightmare, he punches up quite often, even though he's in the shadow of Creator and Classic and Hero when it comes to the top Korean Protoss players. Every now and then, like again, Nightmare, he has it in him to really can't compete with it. I wish I was a Twitch chat GM. I'm just a Twitch chat. And here we go. Spawning in the top right hand corner of Solaris, we do have Nightmare from Matcherino Esports. And spawning in the bottom left hand corner for the KWANGDONG Freeks, we have Stats. The Shield of Ire. The once Shield of Ire. And of course, looking to reclaim that shield. I always love that when Stats was gone, we were always like making memes about like, you know, who would like pick up the shield, you know, who would take his role. Take that mantle. I think the closest was like maybe Creator. Like, the thing is that a lot of the Korean Protosses that are active nowadays especially are very aggressive, you know? Like you've got Hero and Classic that are very in your face. Nightmare is very similar as well. Nightmare, I think he thrives in the mid game more so than in a later game. As for now, we're getting into our openers. It is going to be double gate openers from both players. We've spoken about this before, but again, there is no ramp coming into the natural, so we shouldn't be seeing greedy or economic openers on a map like Solaris. It just isn't safe to do so. Just double gate openers all around. Everything is looking standard for the time being. Now, we were able to cast quite a bit of stats a couple of months ago, last month, during the GSL qualifiers. I think it was like 3 weeks ago at this point. And even before that, like, stats his PvP, again, he hasn't been looking too bad. He has been able to go toe-to-toe with a lot of players. We have seen him actually be quite aggressive in this matchup as well. So I do look forward to it. I do look forward to see how he compares against a player like Nightmare. The downside is that very frequently, whenever we casted stats or whenever we casted TY, we would cast them against like Hero or Dark or Classic, and I don't think that's like fair, because like, again, they're literally going up against some of the best players in Korea, and they have a little bit less opportunity to really shine and really thrive. I do think that this is more of a fairer matchup here for stats to really show off, to really showcase where he is at. But now it's going to be a double Stalker opener all around. Stats is going to be hunting down this probe. Likewise, so is Nightmare. So a mirror matchup so far, both copying each other. We do see our first divergence. Ooh, Nightmare going to be delaying his expansion, going for a faster Robo. Meanwhile, Stats goes for the Nexus first. Stats also has a couple of sentries behind this, so with these sentries, it isn't just defensive. I mean, they do have force fields, don't get me wrong, but more importantly, they can hallucinate and scout. They can send out hallucinations to scout across the map to figure out if their opponent is going for something like a one-base all-in, and this is looking like a one-base all-in because Nightmare, he throws down a third gateway back at home. No Nexus, proxy pylon in the center of the map. Nightmare, he is looking to be hyper-aggressive here. He's basically setting up for a one-base all-in, and we'll see if Stats can hold. He does have a good position here on top of the ramp. He is going for the hallucination, but he will not be able to force field. Hallucination is forced back. Stalkers have arrived. Again, Stats, he was known as the Shield Divider back in the day, but can he call himself that here and now? He needs to if he wants to hold on. Hallucination comes in, but the scout is going to be denied. Doesn't even see if there is or isn't an expansion. It could be a fake out. For all he knows, that there could be a Nexus on the way. He just doesn't know. Another hallucination is on the way. Nightmare just warping in another wave of Stalkers, getting ready for the all-in. War Prism does get found out, does get spotted, and now Stats, now he knows for sure, oh, there's no base. And we need shield batteries immediately. You can see on the production tab, 2 shield batteries get thrown down, but are these shield batteries too late? There is an overcharge available. Those shield batteries are in production. You can see Stats just getting his concave ready. Is it going to be enough? Decent force fields. Good juggling here from Nightmare. Saving those Stalkers, pushing on forward. There's only 2 Stalkers left here for Stats. There's barely any DPS available, and it looks like Nightmare is getting out of control. That's an Artosis Pylon! Ah! The shield batteries are depowered. And there's just far too much Protoss here. GG gets called a Nightmare game. Stats was just caught unawares with his pants down, and GG, solid game out of Nightmare. And with that, he extends the lead for Matcherino Esports, and it's going to be on Stats here to fight back. It's going to be on Stats to pick the next map. As a reminder, it's loser's pick for game number 2 for that second map, and Stats can pick any map he wants, any one he wants, and hopefully he has been practicing, hopefully he has been looking at the new map pool as we're getting into this and spawning in the bottom right hand corner of Hard Lead. We have for Matcherino Esports, Nightmare. And spawning in the top left hand corner, we have for the KWANGDONG FREECS, Stats. Here we go. This is where Stats need to bring it back here and now. Because one more loss and Matcherino Esports will take the entire series. They will claim this as their own. So the pressure is on. Now, of course, Stats, he is a very experienced player, and I'm sure he is unfazed by the pressure that is on him. But nonetheless, you know, he does need to bring it all back here and now. And once again, there is no ramp leading into the natural, so 2 gate openers from both players. Does make plenty of sense. Those wondering, again, there are select maps that are a little bit more defensible, like Site Delta, for example. That's the green map, which has a ramp leading into the natural base, which allows you to be more economic, go for a gate expand, go for a faster nexus. but on a map like Hardlead and even Solaris, double gate openers are expected. And as we've seen, just because the opener is standard doesn't mean that it can't lead into an all-in. Oh, Stats. As Stats is going for a proxy pylon here towards the bottom left-hand corner of the map. Nightmare, he knows that the pylon is missing. So in a mirror matchup like this, you can compare, of course, buildings and Nightmare, he knows that a second pylon should have been thrown down. It's there in the main base for Nightmare. It isn't in the main base for Stats. So Nightmare knows it's out on the map. He doesn't know if it's a committed proxy or not. It could be a fake pylon. That's something else that happens in this matchup, where you just throw down a pylon just to psych out your opponent, just for like some mental warfare, where really you're not really committing to anything. As we can see though, we are committing. Stats is going for a proxy Stargate. Now this isn't the most committed proxy, this isn't all in by any means, this is a way for Stats to get ahead economically with oracles. I imagine it's going to be an oracle first to try to cripple the economy of Nightmare, to try to get ahead in that way. Meanwhile, Nightmare also delays his expansion. He also goes for tech first, and it's going to be a Twilight Council which has not been spotted by Stats. He is a little bit in the dark, but Stats should be able to see that Twilight Council when he comes in with the Oracle. Twilight Council, of course, grants us access to Blink. You can also get into DTs with it. DTs are a little bit less common. Blink is what we should be working towards. Nightmare comes in with his Adepts, and he does confirm that there's an expansion, so now he knows he's not being all-in. He knows that even though there's a proxy pylon out there, there is not an all-in coming his way. So Nightmare knows it is safe enough to expand, and there it is, expansion is thrown down. The Oracle has revealed itself. Do we have units in position? We do not. Uh-oh. No shield battery, no stalkers. We have a recall back home, and probes are going down one after the other. Oof, and by the time the Oracle gets forced back, 8 workers go down. That is an insane amount of damage this early on. The Adepts, they try to get into the main base, but they are denied access. And just like that, Stats takes a massive economic lead. Oof. Stats, he's up 7 workers. He has a slightly faster expansion. The only thing that Nightmare has going for him is faster Blink. Because of that, he does have a more flexible and mobile army. He's going to have a timing where, of course, or a big window where he has Blink and his opponent doesn't, and he's going to have just superior stalkers as a result. But alas, if he can't, if he doesn't have an economy, he can't actually warp into many stalkers, he can't take advantage of that upgrade, and yeah, Stats is looking in a pretty good position. Now, of course, there are plenty of opportunities for Nightmare to come back, especially with these Adepts. All it takes is one moment. One moment where Stats isn't paying attention. For 2 Adepts to slip into a mineral line, they can one-shot workers, but the Oracle shuts down one of the Adepts, which means that one-shot potential is no longer there. A very nice catch here from Stats, taking down that Adept, as he's just fortifying himself back at home, working towards his own Blink. Ooh, even setting up a proxy gateway, which is going to be scouted, has been confirmed by Nightmare, so we can shut that down. Gets the probe and will eventually take down this pylon as well. As Stats is building himself up. From this position, Stats has a couple of options. He could go for his own third and just get even further ahead economically and just really solidify himself. Or he can try to set up for more of 2 base pressure instead. And he is moving out with his main army. Blink is not quite done, so the Adept will not escape. Oh, it does get shut down. At the same time, Nightmare does also take down the pylon in the bottom left and deny the gateway, of course. And Stats is being aggressive. He's posturing outside the natural, but I don't think he's going to commit yet. He's waiting for reinforcements. Waiting for another round of stalkers. And there it is. There's that third base. I really like this here from Stats. Again, he's just extending his lead. This move out from Stats is just designed to contain his opponent. He doesn't have to force his way into the natural. He's going to be dancing with the army, though. Blinking on forward. Will lose the sentry. But there is no shield battery here from Nightmare. Oh, and the blinks are looking slightly better for the blue Protoss. Stats losing a bit too much is going to be forced back, and this is going to trigger a counterattack. Stats, did he poke the bear? Oh, the stay strap will not quite go off. But again, Stats, he didn't have to push into the natural. Like, he was fine containing his opponents. Did take a rough trade, and Stats has to back the hell off. Meanwhile, Nightmare breaks free and takes his own third. He isn't going for a Ganner attack. Is staying back at home. You can see here, Nightmare did not lose a single Stalker. Stats lost 4. Again, Nightmare did have the better control in those blinks, or in that fight. Stats has got to back off, lick his wounds, get his third base up and running. We're now transitioning here into the mid game. We've got Charge on the way. We're going to be diversifying our armies. It isn't just going to be just pure Blink Stalker. We're going to get Zealots involved, Archons, Immortals. But things are going to be calming down at this point. And Nightmare, he's done a good job at just catching back up in the economy. He's still not quite there. Stats has his third base up and running, and he is mining from it. Nightmare isn't. So even though the worker counts are similar, Stats still has the better economy. And he maintains the better economy as well. It's also why that it's very important that Nightmare was able to trade better earlier. Like, it's on him to find these little wins here and there, like catching a couple of units, maybe killing some workers, whatever value he can get. And 4 Stalkers is a good start. From here, Stats are getting ready for his next push. He has a couple of Zealots in the mix as well, to make this a little bit more awkward for Nightmare. Nightmare doesn't quite get the Oracle. Ooh, a little bit of an overextension from Nightmare. Does lose a Stalker. And we got a massive wave of Zealots on the way. Stats looking to push in. Nightmare, he's down 30 army supply. He's not ready for this. Charge did just finish for our blue Protoss, but he is far down in the army supply. Again, thanks to the faster third base, thanks to the better economy of Stats, he's looking to overwhelm his opponent. Overcharge is doing its best, but it's not going to be enough. And Stats is breaking this third base. Yeah, it's just a numbers game at this point, and that proxy Stargate really did set Stats up here for victory. We get another warping of Zealots. The boys are being pulled because they have to be, and Nightmare, he's fighting his heart out. But Stats, he is breaking through. He's getting on top of the army, and Stats is looking to fight back for his team. GG gets called, and Stats does take game 2. GG. Stats, I'm sure, just, you know, wanting something a little bit better, like a 2-0, a little bit stoic there in the reaction, but regardless, he does take game number 2, which means the series continues. It means that the KWANGDONG Freecs, they have a chance. Oh, again, Stats, he was able to get ahead economically from the very beginning, from the initial Oracle, and he never let go of that. He was able to get a fast third base, he was able to saturate it, and he was just perpetually ahead in the economy throughout that entire game. And eventually that was reflected in, as we are getting ready for this, the lobby is set, which means predictions in the chat are open. Best of luck. Best of luck in the chat. Do you believe it's going to be a 2-0 in either direction or a 1-1? For those curious as to the context of this, Keen needs to win 2-0. If he does, we force the ace match. If Future takes 1 game, he only needs 1 game here, he wins it for his team. Oh boy. And game 1 is on Alcyone. And in the bottom left-hand corner, we have a Matcherino Esports. It is Future from Land of the Americas. And in the top right-hand corner, we have, for the KWANGDONG Freecs, Keen. Here we go. We haven't been able to cast too many TBTs in WTL, so I appreciate it. I appreciate that we are getting quite a wide array of matchups. And I think something that I'm really excited about is Future. Future, kind of like Astrea, very similar to Astrea actually. He's willing to think outside the box and willing to do quirky and different builds. We saw that earlier today with Astrea going for Nexus First gold base on Equilibrium, for example. Future, he's also that kind of player where he's willing to just go for these weird proxies or builds. I do know that Future, he comes up with a lot of his own builds as well. which is why his openers can be very unique. So I'm very excited to see what Future brings to the table, and if Keen is able to keep up. I wouldn't be surprised if the new Cyclone is involved in some way in this best of 2. For now, we do see Future going for an economic opener. He's going for a Rax Expand. Keen is going for a safer opener. He's going for a double gas opener instead. So already from the get-go, the openers are quite different here. Where Future is more economic, Keen has the potential to be more aggressive with this double gas instead. Oh, so it looks like we did get a bit of a pause. For those wondering, this series, the reason why there are no cams active, this was played by replays. They were submitted to the WTL admins, and they're being played via replays instead. That is why we don't have cams. Of course, only the WTL admins are privy to the outcome of this series. And the players as well, I guess. But here we go, is being revealed for the first time, and yeah, back at home, we do see Keen going for his own CC. Again, this isn't a one base all-in or anything like that. Despite the double gas opener, it's just for a faster factory, for faster cyclones, faster tech in general. Nice pick-off there. One Marine goes down. Very nicely done here by our Korean Terran. Meanwhile, Future is just setting up himself. As these Reapers, they're not done. They're looking for more damage. They slip behind the mineral line. They get an SCV. And they bypass the bunker, going straight into the main base, and this is already getting a little bit out of hand. 2 SCVs go down, we're gonna get a third! Oof. Ay, ay, ay. Not like this, Buffy, not like this. I didn't even realize there was a Reaper Cliff, a Reaper Cliff coming into the natural. I didn't even know. So Keen able to just pull Future apart a little bit in the early game. Despite the fact that Future went for a more economic opener, Keen takes a worker lead. As he's getting his natural up and running, we do see Future getting into his 1-1-1. Meanwhile, Keen is going to be the aggressor here. He already has a couple of Cyclones in the field. Medevac is on the way to reinforce, to jump across the map. Keen being very in the face of Future, and can Future keep up? But now he's just building up his Marine count. I believe Future does have a Cyclone in the main, but he hasn't gone into tank production yet. As Future is working on his first Raven. As a reminder, when it comes to TVT, quite a lot is going to be impacting this. It isn't just about the Cyclone change. On top of that, for those that are unaware, the Raven has also been changed, and you do require to upgrade the Raven to, there we go, to get that upgrade that you can see for Future. It is Interference Matrix. It is no longer by default on the units. You do need to work on it. You do need to get that upgrade first to be able to utilize that ability. Here we go. Keen goes straight for the main base. Unfortunately, the Cyclones can't quite support this army too well. They're stuck on the low ground until now, as they do get elevated into the main. Diving on those Marines, and we can see Keen getting a bit out of control. He gets the Raven. Oh, the Cyclone as well. Reinforcements are arriving, but this is already too much damage. As Future is struggling to hold on, we do manage to repair the tank, and with the help of these SCVs, the tank does hold. But that is literally the only unit available for Future. 7 SCVs went down. And in a mirror matchup, that is... that's a bit too much, Papi. Keen back at home, getting further ahead. Oh my god, Liberator into the natural, and Future just can barely keep up. Thankfully, he does have some Marines here on the low ground. He can swat that Liberator away. But the tanks, they don't shoot up, and as a result, Keen, he gets even more SCVs. 13. Back at home, Future, as well as Keen, they're both working on their third TCs. Keen's is already done, morphing into an orbital. He's working towards Stim, tanks, the rest of his bio army. Keen is looking pretty damn comfortable. Oh my god. Keen, calm down, Papi, calm down. He drops into the natural, delays the third TC even longer. It's already late for Future, and it's going to be even later here because of this harass, and Keen is looking solid. You know, his initial aggression got an insane amount of success, an insane amount of damage, and now he's getting his third base up and running. Again, building up his tank count. It's going to be a bit of a timing with his bio army as well. We've got 1-1 on the way alongside Stim. Things are looking up here for Keen. And it's going to be on Future to recover. So something that I should mention is Interference Matrix did finish upgrading, did finish researching. So even if Future is down when it comes to tanks or he has a certain deficit, these Ravens, they do support this army quite well, and he can make up for that. He can even try to outposition Keen with said Ravens, but the armies are moving out and they're about to clash in the center of the map. The tanks, they will siege. The Sables are going to be thrown down, but only one. And that is not going to be enough. As Keen, he breaks on through. GG gets called, and Keen will take game number 1. GG, well played. A very solid game out of Keen. I know that I was bringing up Future and his unique builds early on in game 1, but we never really got to see any of that. It was a relatively economic opener out of Future, and from the get-go, you know, he was kind of really struggling to get things going. Even with the first Reapers of Keen, Keen was just in his face, picking apart his economy and pulling him apart completely. So very nicely done here by Keen, but now it's going to be Future's map of choice. And again, this more aggressive style from Future, I expect to see that here in game 2 as we're going to be loading in to Golden Aura. Oh boy. Here we go. Golden Aura is a smaller map. It does have a shorter rush distance by ground as well. The bases themselves are a little bit more defensible. They are more tight-knit and compact, so there are a couple of different ways that you can approach this game. You could go for something more aggressive. We have seen a lot of all-ins on Golden Aura because of that rush distance, and we could see that again. As spawning in the top left-hand corner, we have for Matcherino Esports, Future. And in the bottom right for the KWANGDONG Freecs, Keen. Leading the series 1-0. Keen, he needs one more win, and if he gets it, then we have an ace match. And this is what I expected. Future sending out 2 SCVs. We're going for a proxy 2 racks. Let's go. Okay, so the turns have been tabled. Future wants to be the aggressor. He wants to be in the driver's seat. And last game, we got to see how Keen looked in that role, right? He was just completely pulling Future apart. But as a defending player, can Keen minimize his losses? Can he react well enough? Can he react in time? Can he defend against what Future is bringing to him? So those 2 racks are on the way. It's of course going to be 2 racks Reaper. Is there a Reaper cliff coming in? Am I blind? I think there is a Reaper cliff coming into the main, right? As Reapers are on the way for Future. The minimap is looking like maybe there's dead space there, which I would be concerned about if there is. Regardless, Reapers are in production. Keen going for an economic opener, going for a racks expand. This is best case scenario for Future. Oh my god. It is best case scenario. So can he pull this off? As we have a delayed factory for our Red Terran. CC's on the way. Future should be ignoring that. Ideally, Future, he wants to dive on this Reaper and snowball out of control, taking down the first unit and delaying that factory if possible. So far, everything is looking good for Future. The stars are aligning, but it's all about the execution as he does jump into the main. There we go. The factory is going to be delayed. Keen does pull back with his units, but boys, they have to be pulled. Oh, the Marine barely does survive. And Future is forced out of the main, waiting for his 3rd and 4th Reaper. Factory was delayed for a moment, but it's now in production once again. As Future rotates around, delays the CC. Oof. Pushing up the ramp though, he loses a Reaper. Trades it for a Marine, but that was less than ideal. Again, as the all-in player, you do have to preserve your units as best you can. You can't throw away Reapers. But again, he only lost 1. Cyclone now in production. Future is transitioning back at home. We have a factory on the way. And oh my, Keen! The confidence, Papi. He sends his Reaper across the map. Keen is holding with 2 Marines and nothing else. I mean, the Cyclone is about to pop out. Here we go. The Cyclone does push out. He does hold on to his natural base. Meanwhile, the Reaper gets across the map and he's going to be able to lay the CC of Future. Ay, ay, ay. The confidence, the balls of Keen to leave his bases vulnerable like that. Is he going to get punished for it, though? As Reaper gets into the main base as well. Future down to 2 Reapers of his own. Going for some more SCV kills. Meanwhile, Keen doesn't get surrounded. We are going blow for blow, but with these 2 Cyclones, these Reapers are going to be hunted down. And just like that, Keen has held, and Keen is doing even more damage across the map. Oh my god. This doesn't happen. 6 SCVs. Just like that, Keen has a massive economic lead. He's up in workers. He is up when it comes to the timing of his CC as the command center is done at the natural. And Future's in quite a bit of trouble. Thankfully, he's working on a Liberator, so he can be quite active on the map. He can move out with his Cyclones, with his Lib. There's a lot of pressure on Future to try to get economic damage done, to recover. As is going in with the scouts, just confirming the production, confirming the main base. So Rax will fall. And here we go, Future. Can he recover? Can he make up for his losses? We have a Liberator queued up to go into the main. We have the Cyclones moving towards the natural. Oh, Keen waiting on top of the ramp as well for that army. And he's going for his own drop play. Keen, he just doesn't know how to chill. I love it. As the Cyclones will meet, trading blow for blow, but with this drop, Future, he will lose both Cyclones in the process. Meanwhile, Liberator gets in, and what kind of anti-air do we have? As Keen is going to be losing a lot of these SCVs. Again, very necessary damage here that Future had to deal, as he is evening up the worker count. 6 SCVs in total, and the Reapers, they just dive into the main. But again, Keen did not turn around. He takes down the Cyclone. He's camping the production. Remember when I said Keen has no chill? Yeah. As he's just in the face with barely any units. 3 Marines and 1 tank, but he's doing so much. He's accomplishing so much with this. Almost gets a tank. Takes down another tech lab. He's within range of that depot, and he will get it. This will eventually be cleaned up, but again, these are losses that Future can't afford. Liberator shows up as well. He's like, I heard you like Liberator harass. Ay, 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 as 5 more workers go down. Again, eventually Keen is being cleaned up, but Future already was behind, and he couldn't afford 7 more worker kills like this, or 7 more worker losses. Like, And from here, Keen is just chilling. He's getting a 3rd CC, double E base for double upgrade. Stim is on the way. He's moving out with his army with 3 tanks, and this is going to be a tough hold here for Future. Thankfully, Stim isn't done, so the Liberator is able to escape with its life, and it does also spot the move out. But just because it's been spotted doesn't mean that Future can do anything about it. So he has 1 tank in position. Keen just sharking around, looking to punish a 3rd base on location if Future was adventurous enough to go for that. Liberator comes in. It's gonna get a couple of SCV kills. Oh, late reaction out of Keen. 5 more SCVs go down, but the Viking does arrive. Go the armies, they do scan each other. I'm a little bit concerned that if Keen sticks around too long that he may lose this. Again, very bold of him to take this position here with these 3 tanks. Oh my god! So he takes down a couple of SCVs. I'm like, he's crazy. He's out here in the open, but he's getting damage done. Bit of a miss rally out of Future. Oh, bleeding out too many SCVs. Looks like he may have been rallied to the 3rd base, as he is looking to expand. There we go, Keen. He does unsiege. Repositions, reinforcements are on the way. Oh, Future is within range and he's going to get a tank for free. But Keen is trying to set up a surround, trying to come in from behind. Oh, as he loses another tank. Again, really good positional play here from Future. As he will clean this up. A big loss for Keen, losing 3 tanks. At the same time, though, he does deny the 3rd. So that may have been a rough loss for Keen, but again, he's ahead of base. He's up in bases. Oh, Viking harass in the main as well. Keen just doing everything he can to be just as in his face as possible. We drop into the main to reinforce, to support the Vikings. GG gets called. It's just too much, and Keen does it. He takes down Future 2-0. We have an ace match. We are going all the way to game 7. GG. Oh my god. Very impressive stuff out of Keen. Again, the last time we casted Keen was, I think it was Keen versus Bunny in the qualifiers in WTL Code 8. We casted KWANGDONG FREECS versus Mystery Gaming, and Keen versus Bunny, it wasn't too close. Bunny was looking dominant and Keen was struggling against him, but here against Future, we saw a very different Keen. Very confident play, very aggressive play, and yeah, it was impressive. Very impressive stuff. GG, well played to Keen as he takes a 2-0, and we go all the way to game 7. Let's go. Here we go, and I would like to see the chat get involved. Who do you think comes out as the ace for both teams? Who is going to be the ace player here? Who are we sending out? For Matcherino, is it going to be Astrea? Is it going to be Nightmare or Future? And for the KWANGDONG Freaks, who is it going to be from them as well? Bases on this map. It is the most vetoed map in the map pool. Crazy, puppy, crazy. So that's also something to bear in mind when it comes to the... You put on the ELO, yeah, it's possible, it's possible. So, hold on, I'm scrolling up. What do we think? A lot of people believe in Astrea. Astrea, I think he's a really solid pick for who you think may be fielded. A couple of people went for Nightmare. That's a solid debate to be had. I myself am still not certain who I think is the stronger player, Astrea or Nightmare. And there we go. Oh my god, we have our picked players. It's a rematch. It's an ace match. I mean, in more ways than one. It is gonna be Nightmare versus Stats. Okay. They went 1-1 the last time they faced, and now we get to see how the best of 3 ends between them. Oh my god. All right, predictions in the chat. I'll try to set this up. Hold on. Oh god, I don't have too much time. Predictions, they're open. We're getting in. In the top right hand corner we have Stats for the KWANGDONG Freaks, and in the bottom left we have Nightmare from Matcherino Esports. Here we go, getting right into this. Predictions are open for the next minute, the next, I think, minute and a half. So if you want to place your bets on the ace player, then best of luck. As a reminder, best of 1. It all ends here on Radisson Station in a PvP. I was not expecting this. I was not expecting a PvP as the ace. Again, I was theorizing that we could potentially see TY, but if he is unavailable tonight, then I guess we wouldn't see TY. I guess he isn't able to be fielded. And yes, Stats is going to be stepping into the ring here for game 3. He does want his revenge. He does want to fight back. For now, we do see Stats going for a double gate opener, Nightmare going for a more economic opener, and I do think this makes plenty of sense. Leading into this game, I was talking about some of the features of Radisson Station, and this is a very defensible map, very macro-oriented, very turtley as well, and that is reflected here in the openers. You can see Nightmare setting up on the low ground. He is going to be going for a gate cyber into Nexus. Meanwhile, Stats is going for a more standard opener, not fully taking advantage of the map itself. Oh, and we see why. So Nightmare is going for a very economic opener. Stats with a proxy pylon on the map. This could be a short one. This could be a one-base all-in. The positioning of that proxy is interesting though. This could just be a proxy Stargate out of Stats to get ahead economically, just like game 2 of Nightmare versus Stats. And there it is, Stargate. So it's not a robo, it's not a gateway, it is not all in, just like what we saw on, was it Hard Lead? If I remember correctly, I think it was, yep, Hard Lead. Stats is looking to cripple the economy of his opponent. The downside here, because it's going to be a faster Nexus from Nightmare, even if Nightmare loses as many workers as previously, if he loses 8 workers, it isn't as impactful because Nightmare, he's going to have a higher worker count to begin with, and he's going to be chronoing out 2 probes at a time much earlier on. Meanwhile, we have one Zealot coming out from Nightmare as well. He's going to be scouring the map. He's going to be checking the Nexus. Sorry, checking the Xel'Naga. Xel'Naga does not spot the proxy. Barely out of range. And Nightmare is on a mission to scout anything out of the map, but he won't find anything. Not yet, anyway. As the Zealot is on a bit of a journey, on a bit of a trek. See that first Oracle on the way. And Stats going for a bit of a later Nexus, as natural. For those wondering, for those who maybe haven't experienced this map for yourselves, there is a pocket base. That's also why I bring up the fact that this is a very turtle-friendly map, or a very defensive map, because you do get essentially a free third base. As the first Oracle does arrive, 2 workers go down. A third probe as well. A good amount of damage. Not amazing, but good nonetheless. The Oracle only takes shield damage, and we have a second Oracle on the way, and that's going to be a bit of a power spike for Stats, and that is going to be spotted by Nightmare. So 2 Oracles do one-shot workers. So they pose quite a threat here to Nightmare. A shield battery is not good enough. And the Oracles, they dive into the natural base. They ignore the Stalkers. They get another 2 workers. Yeah, the Oracles still survive. Oh my god! The Pylon survives with 11 HP. Barely makes it out. The Oracles, they try to get more damage done, and we can see the units lost here. Nightmare losing 5 probes in total, and a Zealot. Not bad, but when we look at the workers, you can see that really that just evens things up. Nightmare still slightly ahead, or even in the worker count compared to Stats. That goes to show the power of a faster Nexus opener, and the fact that Stats, he really did have to get this damage done, otherwise he would be behind, far behind. The upside for Stats is that he still has both Oracles alive, so he can actually get even more damage done. He can dip in and get another 2-3 probes if possible. He can still look for more damage. As our players are just taking up, working towards their Twilight Councils, working towards their Blink. Things are settling down. Now, Nightmare, I'm curious when it comes to Nightmare and Stats, how they're going to approach this as a PvP. I wonder if they will go for faster third bases. Again, the thirds are very safe. You can't really abuse them or harass that area with Blink Stalkers. Oh my god. I mean, I have my answer. Stats going for a 2-base all-in. 2 gateways are proxied on the map. We have 2 gateways back at home. I believe that is 4 gates or 4-gate Blink from Stats. Here we go. Meanwhile, oh my god, Nightmare is scouting and he finds it. He finds the proxy. He does come across the gateways. He won't be able to deny it, but he will prepare back at home. He is now aware of what is happening. He's aware of the all-in. And immediately, additional pylons are on the way. We don't want to get caught out with an Artosis pylon. Shield batteries. The other advantage here is that there's only one attack path. There's no way to blink behind the army. There's no way to slip into the natural or slip into the main. That's why this map is so defensive, because there's just very little attack routes available. Oh my, in the face of the, oh, okay. No fear, he throws down a third, but Stas also throws down a third base as well, so he isn't completely all in. He's aggressive, yes, but he is ready for a longer game. He is thinking further ahead. Thankfully, Stats doesn't double down. He will back off. Again, understanding that he got scouted and respecting his opponent, being aware that Nightmare is good enough to hold, so he will pivot away. And now we have forges on the way for +1, charge, additional gateways. The game will go on. Whew. We need to calm down. Calm down, Bobby. As yeah, for now, even though Nightmare is like contained here on his 2 bases and he's being contained by stats, like he's still happily getting his 3rd base. Honestly, he could even take a 4th base from here later on. Like it is still just a very difficult position to break as the aggressing player. So that's just making sure that isn't occurring, making sure he's there to punish a 4th if it were to be taken. And oh, he comes in from behind, gets 2 more probes. Don't forget those oracles, they're still alive from the early game and they still do pose a threat. So a nice amount of economic damage. Nightmare just caught a bit off guard. As the game will be settling from here. Once charge kicks in, we can start working towards Archons or even Immortal production. Stalkers are moving out. Stats has the better concave, but Nightmare does break through. Uh-oh. Oh, but he's being lured out into the open, into those zealots. Thankfully for Nightmare, charge isn't done. He does spot the zealot and he backs the hell off. That would have been a terrible fight for Nightmare if charge were complete. So he does back off, does respect the position of stats, and oh, he will take a more defensive position. There we go. As soon as he saw those zealots, Temple Archives. Oh, actually, sorry, that was from Stats. Stats taking up further into a Temple Archives. That's going to be for Archon production. I'm surprised that Nightmare hasn't gone for that himself, as a 4th base is being taken. But yeah, I'm surprised that he hasn't gone for his own Temple Archives. He's not going for his own Archons. Just sticking with a Gateway army. 2 Adepts do shaded and 2 Adepts do one-shot workers. They split up their shots though. Ugh. Not the best target firing. They only get 1 probe, barely a second. Bit of miscontrol there from Nightmare. Stalkers are looking to move out, and Nightmare, he's just relying on just a pure Stalker army here. And can he break through? There just aren't enough zealots. They're just slowly bleeding out. And Nightmare, he's looking to get on top of those Stalkers, but we have reinforcements coming in. Nightmare is being forced back. And it looks like he has confidence in his ability to control or out-control his opponent. Does dive on top of the army. Nightmare does have the higher Stalker count. He has a Stalker lead, and he catches even more Stalkers in the retreat. Stats, he's up against the wall. He's racing back home. Oof. Now, unfortunately, Nightmare doesn't have a War Prism, so he can't reinforce. What you see is what you get. There we go. And Nightmare does take a 4th base behind this. Meanwhile, Stats going for a big Zealot counterattack. Oh, barely holds onto that pylon. Recalls back home. Is aware that there are Stalkers marauding out on the map. And the game will settle from here. Again, there was no way for Nightmare to reinforce, so he couldn't keep pushing towards the 4th base. Without a proxy gateway or without a War Prism, couldn't quite pull that off, so he's going to be taking a 4th base instead. And Nightmare, instead of going into Archons, he's going straight for a Robotic Spay. Disruptors. Blink Soldier Disruptor is a composition of choice for Nightmare. A very powerful composition. It's very high risk, high reward, as you can imagine. If the Novas connect, then you can just dominate a fight. If they miss, if they are dodged, then we could see the fight go the other direction instead. As both players are just settling down here on 4 bases. Dark Shrine on the way for stats. Zealot Rambai is going to go by unnoticed. Has potential for damage. Oh, Nightmare getting into a second robot for double disruptor production. Of course, we'll soon be able to make 2 disruptors at a time. +3 is on the way for stats, maintaining his upgrade lead. But the Zealots slip in, and they will get a couple of workers. They do force at least a warp in. Thankfully, Stats had his warp in available. Only 2 workers go down, and these Zealots should be hunted down, as Stats is looking to cut them off. But again, Nightmare, he's just buying time. He's just keeping Stats busy, while Nightmare builds up his disruptor count and catches up in upgrades as well. Again, as we mentioned before, because of the feature of this map, it is really difficult to punish the 3rd or punish even the 4th base. As I say that, Stats is going to try. We have a Warp Prism. We are looking to drop into that 3rd. Looking to catch Nightmare off guard, but we have the DTs. We have a cannon as well for detection. The Warp Prism does go down. And these DTs aren't going to find any damage, at least not at the 3rd, as they recall back home. Very nicely handled by Nightmare to keep some Stalkers in position, to have a shield battery, to have a cannon as well. Very well done. Oh my god! Stats and... I mean, I guess it makes sense. So we haven't had the luxury of... this is my first PvP on this map, by the way. This is the first time I'm casting a PvP on Radisson Station. We have Stargates on the way and +1 air attack. We could go all the way to the late game. We could be seeing Skytoss versus Skytoss if the game goes on any longer. Before that happens, though, Nightmare is pushing out. Here we go. The armies are clashing. They are colliding. We do have those disruptors for Nightmare. Will force Stats back, but he blinks with 4. He's going to be able to get 1. Oh, not quite. Doesn't get the disruptor. Again, the armies, they do dance. Both players are transitioning in towards that Sky Toss. But, again, Stats, he's already got a Flea Beacon on the way. Nightmare, 1 step behind. As he does have an overwhelming Stalker army, so he can push through. Zealots have been warped in. You see Stats attempting to expand and take a 5th base. And yeah, both players are working towards their Fleet Beacons. Stats will have an upgrade advantage as he went straight for +1 air attack. So his air transition will be stronger overall. Now I imagine this should be for carriers, but we could try to go straight into Tempest as well. But there we go. Nightmare commencing his carrier production. Stats still deciding on his own. As the armies are still just dancing in the center. Both players trying to get their 5th bases up and running. We have Zealots hitting the 5th base of Nightmare. Gonna be distracting his army for a moment. I thought it was Zealots, but it looks like it was DTs. And there it is, carriers from Stats as well. So we are getting into Skytoss versus Skytoss. Again, this is typically how games go. On Radisson Station, like they typically go to the late game. It's just my first time seeing a PvP on this map, and my first time seeing Skytoss versus Skytoss in a very long time. Actually, it's been a while. I appreciate it. Oh, as we do see Stats, bleeding out quite a lot of Stalkers already. Has to be careful not to allow things to snowball out of control, at the same time going for a massive Zealot Rabbi at the 5th base of Nightmare. And this may just force Nightmare's hand. He's going to keep on pushing. Stats does have a couple of carriers on the way. Are they going to be enough though? As he gets a full surround, and Stats will get a kill on that 5th. At the same time, Nightmare with his Blink Stalker army, he should actually be able to get a kill on the 5th base of Stats as well. Both players going to be bleeding out bases. Novas will not quite connect. They do trade blow for blow. Oof. As again, I don't think this is a fight that Stats really wants to commit to. Yeah, he's going to be losing some more Stalkers, going to be losing some more Archons. Now, even though Stats' ground army is a little bit lackluster, remember, Stats, he does have a stronger Skytoss army that's coming out. You know, that's the advantage that he has. He already has +1 air attack. He's working on +2. Oh, as once again, Nightmare, his 5th base is denied. He's trying to force his way through. Novas go up. Zoning away the army. He's getting on top of the carriers. There just isn't enough to support. There is not enough to support. Those carriers are going down one after the other. And Nightmare is snowballing out of control. Zealots come in now, but it's too little too late. There are still even more Stalkers. And Stats is going to be losing everything. He has Zealots, but really that's all he has left. And how does he answer these carriers? He doesn't. Mothership comes in to help support, and Nightmare, it looks like he has broken through. Stats, he's warping a couple of Stalkers. He's going for a big counterattack across the map as well. But when it comes to the armies, Nightmare comes out on top. Yeah, we have defensive DTs, and there's nothing left here for Stats. It was a good effort. Went all the way to, was getting into the late game. We didn't quite get to see Skytoss versus Skytoss. We almost got there. We were so close. But Nightmare, he found an opening, and he went for it. Gets on top of the carriers once again. GG gets called, and Nightmare is going to take down Stats, and Matcherino Esports will be the winners of this Team League match. GG. Oh, thumbs up. Thumbs up, Papi, thumbs up. GG, well played. Nightmare does it. And congratulations to Matcherino Esports and all the players as well. Astrea, Nightmare, Future, all doing well here tonight. I mean, of course, you know, some players more so than others, but regardless, shout out to Matcherino. Also a shout out to the KWANGDONG Freecs because they forced the ace match, you know, and we got to see quite a lot out of these players. Again, I was very impressed by Keen. Keen was looking good tonight, which I always appreciate, right? I was concerned that some of these returning players would struggle a little bit more than others, but we had a very impressive showing by Keen. Even Stats, you know, was able to get a game as well and fight back for his team. So very well done by the KWANGDONG Freecs. Wasn't enough to win the whole series, but did take it to the ace match. GG.